Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I just skipped over the agenda, kind of know what we're doing there. So Haley is back. Haley, your presentation last week was amazing.
Oh, thanks. I realize every time you do something new, you realize what you will do different. And mine is probably not prepping at midnight the night before, but also like there's like one slide I can totally take out of there. Didn't really flow, but it was so fun. I had so much fun, but I also feel like because I was maybe a little nervous, I didn't let my authenticity like shine. But I thanks.
Well, nobody else would say that because everybody I talked to loved it, not just the content, but and I said this to you too. You presented very well. I
Oh,
felt like you did have a lot of personality that came out. It was very engaging. So yeah, definitely don't be hard on yourself because it was awesome.
okay. Thank you. So it's been 2 weeks since this thought, and I don't really remember what happened. I should probably look at my calendar. What has happened in those past 2 weeks? I think since this, I think I did my first podcast guest interview also, and that was really fun. And I feel like I came as myself too. And I think that's just the where you're going to feel the best, you guys. You're going to feel like you're doing your best when you feel like yourself, right? When you don't feel like you're trying to be somebody else or doing it because somebody else wanted it a certain way. Jeff, can I pick on you a little bit? Oh,
Absolutely.
Jeff presented at the Utah Valley RIA or Utah County RIA. What do they call it?
UV, Utah Valley.
Utah
Yeah,
Valley.
it's the
Okay.
UV.
And so I'm at the office on Wednesday the Marchant office on Wednesday about to present. And I say, Jeff, how was your thing? How was your presentation? And his answer was kind of like, okay, I'm gonna let you correct me, but it was kind of like, it was good, but I didn't feel like I was myself. Okay, that is totally paraphrased, but will you kind of explain it?
Actually, as we kind of talk about your sharing about authenticity on this, that is exactly what I thought about in looking back. So to start with, Ashley and I were talking about our team meeting and our flow and these thoughts, and I love the interaction that we were having and the personal shares that we are sharing with each other. And I want to continue doing these, but often, like you said, Kaylee, hey, it's been 2 weeks and it wasn't really on my mind until now, so I'm looking back. And that's exactly what I said to Ashley. I says, I wasn't thinking about your thoughts that you left us with 2 weeks every day, right? But now that we're coming back to team meeting, it's like it gives me a chance to reflect back. And the first thing that popped into my mind, and obviously it did yours too, when it comes to authenticity, is you asked me about that presentation, and I wasn't pleased with it. It was I stammered, I lost my place, I didn't prepare like I should have. But what in connection with your thoughts on authenticity, what I realized was I probably prepared too much because I tried to give them something that I thought they wanted rather than just, I mean, you know me, I would have been better just standing up and talking
Yeah.
and letting it flow better and relating to the people. Instead, I had my planned opening, I had my slides, I had my quotes, I had my flow that I thought I wanted to make these points going through. And so I only made about half of them.
Yeah. So the person who asked you to present, Jeff, knows you and they wanted you. They
Mhm.
didn't want a presentation form of Jeff. Like
Yep,
they
you're right.
wanted Jeff. And and when I got asked to be on that podcast, I realized going into it, I'm like, oh, he asked me because he wanted me to be on this. He doesn't want anybody else. He wants actually me. And that's with your quirks, with you just talking. That's with your experiences. That's with all of that.
Mhm.
So I think it's a really good reminder. So what I do to help me with authenticity is I just check back. So I have like my core values of who I am and what makes a meaningful life for me. And I check back with those. It's not like, oh, check on my action steps. Are they making money? Okay, yes, but are those action steps actually aligned with my values? Like who I am. Does Kaylee want to present at the Marchant office? Yeah. Does Kaylee want to be a guest on a podcast? Yeah, but that's not everybody. Does Jeff want to present at UV RIA? Yeah. but they want you. Like, when people are referring you, that Oak City referral, like they're referring Lynn. Lynn doesn't have to go and be like, okay, who am I? How am I going to show up to this agent? I mean, to this client, potential client. What should I say? What should I do? Like, she knows who she is. She's done this before. She knows what kind of agent she is, and all she has to do is show up as her. Yes, there are some little action steps we have to take, or education or whatever, but like we get to show up as us, and that's going to reward us with clients and a meaningful business. So
I love all of that. Who else has some thoughts on Kaylee's sharing here?
I can say something because
yeah.
what Jeff and I have been talking about a lot is just with our team as well, like thinking about, okay, how do we want things to be like as leaders? Like we're all leaders for Team Limitless here. And so thinking about how do we want to lead Team Limitless in an authentic way. I think that's super important because it's very easy, at least for me, it's very easy to get caught up in you have to have perfect systems and processes and you have to do things this way. And it needs to be, like, even when you're thinking about being a realtor, like people tell you how you should be a realtor, and it's so different for everyone. So that's something that we've been talking a lot about and like working on leaning into is just, okay, who are we? What's important to us? Because we're different in some ways.
And one thing that sparked this conversation is we have our Wednesday trainings booked out through like July. And as we're looking through the speakers coming in, I don't even know some of them because they've found us and they're interjecting themselves into our world as whatever perceived benefit they see of networking with more agents and whatever. And that's all great. But I realized we're not being purposeful and intentional on who we're inviting and who we want to share. And so where we're kind of shifting in that training mindset kind of goes back to my investing career, my beginning days as a realtor. And now with these trainings, in those other areas, I always found what I was, Kaylee, who I was, not who everybody else was. And it was always a separation. For instance, and I'll be brief on this so I don't take too much of our time, but when I was investing, a lot of investors want to get the deed. They want to do subject to, they want to control the property by ownership. What I did though, is I explained to the owner their options, right? If they wanted to sell me their property and I wasn't getting a conventional loan financing to pay them off and their loan was going to stay in place, I explained to them this difference between a seller financing transaction and a lease option transaction. Our terms that we negotiated were the same. The only thing was I'm conveying to them, I'm looking out for you because if I screw up, you can evict me. If you give me the deed and I screw up, you have to foreclose on me. And so I would say everybody else is going to do this. And those were the conversations they were already having. But I think you should do this because I think you're more protected. When I went to people losing their home in foreclosure, I says, I don't want to buy your home. I don't want to list your home. I want to see if I can help you save it through doing a modification. So where our narrative based on those two things is kind of going between Ashley and I that we want to share with you is you can get business planning clinics and time management, how to do a CMA. You can get the training to be an agent anywhere. Where we focus and where we want to change our focus is more in the personal development area on becoming, self-aware, becoming authentic and who we are. Because if we get that piece right, our business is going to do better. And so by pointing out this is what others do, we're a little bit different because we're going to focus a little bit more on personal development. And you'll see that with some of the trainings that we have coming up. But anyway, that's just part of our narrative. The why Ashley brought that up is we're still always trying to figure out not just who we are, but are we conveying who we really are? And I realize that others are occupying my space without it being intentional of bringing them in, if that makes any sense at all.
Well, and I think too, just like as you were talking about that, like one thing that I love too, like we loved having you come in, Kaylee. We love having our agents like talk about what makes them different and them authentic, because I think that's what does make us different, is that like Jeff's listing presentation is not a presentation, like where anybody else that's gonna come in, especially like a lender that's getting like a PowerPoint slide deck from their company and they're just coming in to present like business planning or, you know, like listing presentation, how to do this. And it's like, we need to be learning from the agents that are out there actually doing things. And we need to be learning from people who are like making shifts within their lives. And so we want to be that connector. So that's what we're working on. So if you guys have people that pop into your mind that you're like, hey, I was connected with this person, it shifted my life. Like those are things that we're looking for.
Well, and you guys, like she said, we want the benefit to be kind of in-house as well, right? You know, Sydney's done a presentation, Kaylee's done we've had several of you do presentations because you have specialized knowledge in what you do in a certain area, and those along with the personal development. So it's not like we're not going to talk about investing and, you know, Sydney does branding and all this other stuff, but the focus is going to be more on you guys and the personal development stuff.
Love it. And I think we're happy to be here because you give us permission to niche down and do it how it feels good to us. And that's really nice. It doesn't feel like we're like, you're not herding like a bunch of cows, right? Like it just feels like we get to be driven towards our niche and you guys are helping us. So thanks.
Anyone else? Going once?
You know, Jeff, I'll just jump in real quick.
Thanks.
Real estate is the easiest product to sell on the planet because you don't have to convince anybody that they want to buy a house or own a house. They already have been raised. They already believe it. They know it. Very, very few people say, I think renting my entire life is the secret of success financially. So we have a very easy product to sell. We're not trying to convince somebody to buy a Volkswagen when really they want a Toyota. We don't have that problem. So the one thing that we have is our ability to, have some skill in knowledge and helping people and being authentic and really protecting them. So it is so true. I don't think there's any industry where the relationship and the trust is more important than in a real estate transaction because of what our product is. Everybody wants it. They just need somebody that they believe has their best interests. So I like this.
I love that, Eric. It ties in with what Kaylee's talking about too. What she was saying is they want you.
They want you.
One, also, I just thought of what you've been saying a lot lately is that we're not a sales industry, we're a service industry. And I think a lot of people would say that realtors are sales, like that's just what the generic public would think. So I think shifting that is important too.
You know, that narrative, you guys might want to adopt that because I found it's led to some really good conversations with my clients. And again, it's another differentiator because everybody in the general public would say that we're salesmen, we're salespeople, right? If you can go into there and say, you know what, this is the perception of the industry, and this is where I have kind of a hard problem with it because I see myself as a service provider. I'm here to take care of your needs. I'm not here to sell you anything. The dialogue is just different. Does that make sense? When you listen to other coaches teach listing presentations and stuff, it's all off selling yourself and your brokerage and your marketing materials and all this stuff so that they'll hire you. But when you, again, separate yourself by setting that aside and say, yes, that's a given that it's about that. But what I want to talk about is this, it really changes the conversation.
Hey, Jeff.
Hey, Nathan.
Good morning, by the way, everybody.
Morning.
I've never seen a car salesman go through and point out the dents.
I love that. They sure do when you're doing a trade-in. All right, well, if something comes to your mind on that topic, go ahead and just chime in and share on that. But let's kind of like generalize, not generalize, but let's talk about these other topics here. If anybody has any challenges that we can present to this group, there's a lot of knowledge right here and stuff. If you're dealing with something that you got some questions on, if you got a win you want to share, I'll prompt Kathy because I know that she's got a win coming up. She's got her first listing in a long time, and she's pretty proud about that. So anybody else that has anything in this area, please chime in.
All right, I'll jump in again. I've got a nice win this weekend. It's step one of a win, I guess. Michelle and I were showing houses to a client both on Saturday and Sunday this weekend that has been on our whiteboard on our wall for a year, and we did not quit. Just checking in, reaching out. We knew they were moving from California to Utah sometime, but it was just kind of out there with no time frame, stamped on it. We just check in with them, once a month. They're on our auto sheets. Every once in a while, they'll ask about a property. And just all of a sudden, I think the last time we reached out to them was about 3 weeks ago. And they messaged us and said, hey, we fell in love with this property in Saratoga Springs. We want to see it this weekend and a couple others. And we ended up putting a really competitive offer in on the property. And we'll hear back sometime today if we get it. But I think that's a fun win, just because I didn't give up on him. We didn't give up on this buyer. Just reach out and stay in contact. And sure, lots of those kind of fade away over time. They never do turn into anything. But if you try to stay in touch with all of them, every once in a while, you'll get a return on your efforts of not quitting on a potential transaction and buyer or seller.
Question about that. When do you have them sign a buyer broker agreement?
So I actually had him sign it when we wrote the offer yesterday. That's kind of been my standard policy for ever since I've been in my, started my career. And I've had brokers tell me, you should not do that. You should have them sign it, towards the beginning. But my reasoning behind that is, even if I signed an agreement a year ago with them and they asked me, hey, we really don't want to work with you, I'm not going to force them to work with me. So I want someone to work with me that wants to work with me. So it's just never been a hard thing for us. Plus, it's very simple to explain the agency when you write the offer and send it over to him to sign, as you're including that. So that's just how we've done it. And yes, I've been burned a couple times over the years. Yes. I've had someone I showed houses to for quite a while, and they ended up going under contract on a FSBO and just cut me out. But I think for me, the fact that I'm not trying to get it on our first or second meeting and really trying to lock them up has been more advantageous and helped me get more referrals, just because of how we do business versus how many we've lost because we didn't get contracts, agreements right up front. But there's different opinions on that both ways, but that's just how we've done it. Kathy.
I would like to piggyback on you, Eric. I thought this was nationwide, that the new agency law, buyer's agency law, requires us to, at least in Washington here, we will not get paid if we do not have a buyer agency agreement in place. We will not get paid no matter what stage we're at with that buyer. Okay. If we go to closing and we don't have that form filled out, we won't get paid. It's a real legal matter now, but I thought it was nationwide because it went into effect January 1st.
Well, we do have a buyer's agreement on every client that we close, for sure. We don't write an offer
Well,
without.
they tell us that we have to, because I've been to two block hour class is taught by Annie Fitzsimmons, which is our Washington State attorney for real estate, I guess.
That is
And
a Washington thing. It's probably coming to Oregon too. They're already having us start doing them, even though it's not the law yet,
I
because of
thought
the
it was the law.
lawsuit.
Yeah, but I thought it was, yeah, because of the lawsuit, but I thought it was the law. And so I was about to ask, that was one of the things I was going to ask today, but Eric just brought that up, was if anybody had any kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Words, I guess I would say, words to help present that to a buyer, because I've been burned many times too on a buyer where they've walked, and didn't use me. So I have a hard time getting that buyer agency agreement across in the first place. So Julie Dean, our managing broker here in Spokane now, she gave me some words that I haven't had a chance to practice on it with it yet, but she kind of just ties it into her buyer when she's working with the buyer, just a regular conversation about how that works, how the agency works. But I don't know how you explain it to her, because basically they're trying to say, well, the buyer's now going to have to be responsible for their own commission to pay a buyer's agent, unless the seller is willing to agree to to pay it, because I think buyers are used to not ever having to pay. They have a hard enough time coming up with their own down payment and so forth, and closing costs. So now we're having to ask them if they will be willing to pay our commission, our fees.
So
So
Kathy, I don't think that there's any question that all of us need to have that form. I think Eric was more speaking of when he presents that.
we're taught, and that's what I'm saying. We're taught to do it in the very, very beginning, when we first meet with them. The first time we even show them a house. We might show them 10 more later, but the first time we even show them a house, we need to get that.
And that's true. And that's true. And you're going to have to follow your leaders in your state and your gut. Because technically, if we're acting as an agent, meaning we're showing them properties, then we should have that in place. And that's what the board says. That's what the Association of Realtors says. So I guess you could say I fudge that a little bit, because I want to show them some value before I ask for the marriage certificate. You know what I mean? I want to.
I agree with that too.
So there may be some risk involved there. So I'm not telling you how to do it for yourself, but Eric and I kind of are on the same mindset there. I like to show them that there's some value there before I ask for that.
If someone asks me if I can send them some property on the market for sale, I'm not going to tell them I can't until we have a buyer's agreement signed and go through that conversation. I'm going to show some value first.
That's how I feel too, that it should be that way. But so I had mixed feelings when I've attended this class, and trying to, we were required to take the class. So I mean, I got 7 clock hours out of it, but still,
Every state's different, for sure.
And
Lynn, did you have a comment?
I thought it was, and that's the thing, I thought it was nationwide. So that's why I was saying, how come nobody's talking about this? How come we don't have any scripts or anything for this kind of a new thing, So anyway.
I would say, Kathy, it's because we've all been taught that that's what we need to do, and all it takes is you losing one person that you realize that is absolutely not what you want to do. So at least for me, when I was a newer agent, I had someone that I'd been talking to for a very, very long time. I went and showed him houses, really excited. But because, I was told that you need to get a buyer broker agreement signed after I showed him the houses, I pulled out the buyer broker and kind of explained it and wanted them to sign it. Well, they never talked to me again.
Right. And I've had that happen too.
I always show my value before I get a buyer broker signed. Normally I'll do it with an offer. And I know that's not what we're supposed to do, but that's the way I do business. I want to prove how good I am, because it's always a no-brainer. They don't even question it, but I do always go through everything with that buyer broker, because that is something that people slip in on people all the time and don't even explain it to them. And then all of a sudden they're in like, how did I even get in this contract? But they need to know that when they're hiring you, that they don't go look at houses with other people once that is assigned, right?
Right. Okay.
I don't know, just make it about them. That's the only words of advice I have.
Right. Okay. I appreciate that. Thanks, Lynn.
I just wondered especially about those people coming in from out of town, because I have somebody from California looking in our valley here, and yes, I want to provide value for him. I'm inviting him to my classes and willing, I got him his listing alert set up, and they're not even really sure what they're looking for, but I'm happy to go on a walkthrough, record a video for them, that kind of thing. So that's good to know. See, I think it's good to hear Eric and Jeff and Lynn on this, because it's like, okay, calm down. You don't have to get it signed. Just keep doing what you're doing and providing value. And if it's a true client who wants to work with you, they're not going anywhere, really. So,
Well, and Kaylee, there's no reason why you can't bring it up and then set it aside. Because if they call another agent, they may get the opposite of the person saying, I need to get this signed before I can do anything. And they're going to compare you and them, right? And how you're trying to actually give them some service and build a relationship. And this other person says, I can't do this until I have this, which is totally appropriate.
Yeah.
So again, back to authenticity. And I'm not the broker. I'm not condoning either way, but in that case, I would say that you're going to have a better relationship by bringing it up. And then, like I said, set it aside, says, we'll address this like Eric does, and I do when we write up an offer, but know it's coming. And you can talk about fiduciary. It just means that I represent you 100%. And then you can explain limited agency too, if that arises, if you've got a flip you're selling or whatever. Well, actually, you can't represent the buyer on your own property.
and it's better. It's better on that. So yeah.
Yeah, but if it was a listing, you could. So, but you can have the narrative without forcing the commitment too early.
Okay. Yeah. I like that.
One thing, Kaylee, that I've said for years is before I have a buyer's agreement, I explain to them that 5% of my job is finding you a house. My job really starts when you identify a home you want to write an offer on. That's really when everything that I do starts. And I kind of say that because anyone can get online and find houses for sale. It's like our job is not to find houses for sale. They can go on to multiple websites and find the same homes that we're going to send to them on Utah Real Estate or whatever MLS we're using. My job starts when they find that. So if I let them know, hey, if you pop in an open house and there's a house that you're interested in that's not on a list that I've sent you, you see something on Zillow or whatever, just screenshot it and text it to me. I'll do all the research for you. I'll find out what's going on with the property and get you the inside scoop on it thing.
Yeah.
So
I like that.
it's just it's a subtle way to remind them, hey, I can help you with any home that you find. And I let them know that my job isn't to find you a house. I assist in that, but that's not my job.
Yeah.
It's just a small portion of it.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
It used to be, right? I mean, before the internet, a long time ago, agents were the gateway to the listings. They literally printed them in a book, and agents are the only ones that had access. Our market's completely different now, but that's the way it used to be. Our value proposition is just presented differently because even though they still had the same value proposition back then, it was focused too much on you being the keeper of secrets. And if you want to know what's for sale, you got to go through a realtor, right? Awesome. Good stuff, guys.
Yeah, that was like 30 years ago.
Right? I remember
I was there.
Lynn's mom was an agent up in Idaho and we'd go visit up there. I would literally sit by the fire and flip through the book and look at properties, and we'd go look at properties while we were up there in my early 20s. So
Well,
I'm old. I remember that.
we didn't even have internet then.
Yeah.
It didn't even exist.
So I just want to make a suggestion on Haley's training right here. You'll find it in the Team Limitless Facebook group. You'll also find the link to our YouTube channel where all our trainings are stored. I would I bet that all of you have at least one or multiple people that could benefit from you sending them a link to watch this training. Okay. It's on everybody's mind. It addresses to an extent the affordability issue that's on people's minds on should they buy, should they not. Kaylee outlined things that the average person that's not in real estate won't think of on their own unless they have a professional like you that give them more options. So this was really, really great. It doesn't go in depth in any one strategy, but she talked a lot about possibilities with properties that you can do to house hack. And so that would be my challenge is get that link, use it as a touch with your SOI. Send it out there, maybe even to people in my age group that have kids that are of buying age, right? And their kids are wondering, so it doesn't necessarily have to be for that person, but maybe they might be able to share it with their family and friends and make a connection with you as a realtor. So that's a great benefit of these trainings, particularly this one.
Haley, I meant to text you and tell you how great a job you did. I just been a little busy, but you were so natural.
You're sweet. I'm like racking my brain of like, can we have a redo? But you're sweet.
Like very natural, like you'd done a lot of public speaking. It was fantastic. And I actually
Haley, sorry, Eric. I'm refuting her comment like she did mine. I said, you need to go watch it. If you haven't watched your own training, then you need to watch it. I learned that from Sydney because when Sydney did hers on branding, she was saying the exact same thing. It's like she was preparing last minute, this and that. Literally, after she watched it back, she was actually taking notes on her own training, saying, "Oh, that was good. I got to remember to say that again. I forgot I even said that." So anyway, sorry, Eric.
Oh, I was just, it's all good. I actually said, I've already sent this link to 2 of my lenders. And I challenged them. I said, will you watch this and help brainstorm with me a good strategy to bring some more buyers to the table, within our joint SOI we've had for years. So I hope both lenders get back to me with some ideas and some strategies, but I think it's brilliant. Probably my biggest takeaway was the median income is lower than the median price of homes. And we have a shortage of doors. We have more families than doors. This is the solution. That was my takeaway. I thought it was brilliant.
Thank you. And it did not go into depth, you guys. So you can probably send it to anybody because it's like it's a talking point and a touch point and see where your clients gravitate. Like, oh, I heard this, it was very just beginner level because a lot of people out there say, I can't afford a house, but you can. So
it's right there in the title, right? 101. This is the basics. This is an overview. And that's exactly my point, Kaylee, is it may start conversations that will lead to buying and selling.
And if you can show some rent income from the home, then that buyer can qualify for more using the right lender, correct? So if your lender's not willing to figure out a way to bump up their approval based on maybe finding the right house, find a lender that is, because that could be a huge asset down the road as they have a higher priced property that's appreciating over time that they're paying less for monthly. That's a pretty cool deal.
Or just when people say, I don't have the money to do the renovation, it's like, get a renovation loan, talk to a lender. Like right now, I feel like more than ever, it's really important for us to have our lender partners. I mean, it always is, but it's like, you are going to be holding hands with your clients who think they can't buy a house right now. And you are going to say, yes, you can. Let's make a phone call. And they're gonna be like, no. I'm like, what's the big deal? Let's make a phone call.
Let's do it together.
Together. Yep. So yeah, I think it's just, you guys, it's the best. House hacking is the best.
Yes. All right, that's my comments on that. This Wednesday, I met Travis Labrum at it was a VIP dinner that was before a kind of like a mastermind / networking event that I couldn't attend, but the guy putting it on invited Lynn and I to the dinner, and we sat at the table with this guy. He's with Sandler Coaching, the buyer seller dance. I don't know how to explain it exactly, but it's on positioning and on conversations, and then the negotiations, and like you can kind of tell by the little tag frame, do you lead or do you follow? I mean, we're all told that we should be listening more than we're speaking. And so this is going to kind of hopefully be something that helps us with our conversations and our presentations when we're talking to our clients. It'll be a good one. Then I want to point out a couple of these that are coming up. I'm going to be gone the following week, so we're not going to do one the first week of March. I'm not going to do a training. I'm going to be in Cabo with EXP at their build event. But when we come back, we're doing another off-campus training. This one's going to be down in Orem at the building's called Tax Hive. I met the owner of Tax Hive. He actually presented this business on Shark Tank and is partners with Kevin O'Leary in this business. He's a super connected guy, and he's offered up his amazing building and space for these types of things. And what I found when we did our last panel discussion at Edge Homes was we got a lot of participation from outside EXP agents with other brokers because we were in a neutral location. This is something that Eric pointed out to me a couple of months ago that was drawn to his attention by Brent Gove, and it makes a lot of sense. So we're trying to do more, especially on these specialty things that I'm putting together, at a neutral location. So you can invite the agents that you've done transactions with, or that you're friends with on Instagram or Facebook and this and that. And it's more likely that they may attend this, and you can further that relationship. But if you guys know Josh Metal, he's an amazing presenter. We're going to have a panel discussion talking about the forecast. Each one of these people are going to take about 10-15 minutes and give their take on the market. And then we're going to have open Q&A. And we're going to have some lunch. We got a sponsor down there. So that's going to be an awesome event for you guys to attend. And I don't even know if that one's going to be on Zoom yet because of the venue. Not sure yet. But anyway, Jake Breen, he's with Utah Cribs. Jordy Clark, a lot of you know Jordy Clark. He's actually on our EXP in our team Limitless. After that, we're going to have here in the office Chat GPT training, kind of relevant for the way things are going right now. And then we're going to be back at Edge Homes with Tony Child. Who knows Tony Child? A lot of the people on here. Nathan may not, Stacy may not, Kathy may not because he's more local. Hillary, do you recognize that name? Okay. Who wants to say a little bit about Tony that knows him? Anybody want to, besides me, say something about this event?
What's the training on? I can't read it.
So Tony Child, it's I don't know what the name of his thing is, but it's kind of the lead into his pivot point training.
Okay.
Mindset, momentum. I'm going to do a Zoom recording with him on Friday. We have an appointment where he's going to explain what he's going to be talking about. So that will get added to his registration page on Friday, having him explain what it's about. And then I'm also going to do a teaser trailer with Janine Otley, who is she's sponsoring the location at Edge Homes again. They're on Bangor Highway. She is a personal product of Tony Child's training and loves the experience she's had with him. So she's going to do a little video for us too. So yeah, to answer your question, James, it's kind of like around a lead-in introductory to his pivot point training.
Okay. I mean, I'll say something for those people who haven't done it is how long, I don't know. Tony came into the office. Has it been over I don't know, maybe a year ago or something like that. Either way. So he did probably a similar training, and then Shane and I opted to go to Pivot Point in person, which was a 2-day event, and it was just awesome. And from there, we've joined his coaching group, and it's basically been life-changing. And I don't say that lightly because I've done coaching with what's his name? Like Sean Whalen and the Muscle from the Diesel Brothers, Keaton Hoskins, and then a number of other people. And Tony's coaching blows theirs out of the water, to be honest. And so what he does, he has a very interesting story, and he's very science based and things that actually work, where I think those other people, they're just kind of going off their own experience. But Tony adds his own experience in addition to a ton of research that he's done, and that he's read about through positive psychology. And I'm actually impressed with how much research he does and the understanding that he gets from the trainings and things. So if you can make it or watch it, it's 100% worth it. And I'm not really into like floofy things either, and this is not that. So
Well, my takeaway on that is I'm going to find an opportunity to use the word floofy
yeah,
in an upcoming conversation.
yeah, it's in all caps. So just to let you know, if it's in a text message.
Well, I thought you had him before, Jeff, on one of these Zoom classes, like Eric saying, or like, I'm sorry, who was it talking? James, about a year or so ago, because he looks familiar to me, and the topic
Yep.
sounds familiar to me a little
Yep.
bit. So
We did have him in. In fact, you could go to the YouTube channel where we store the trainings and watch it if you want, to decide if you want to attend this one. But I think you would. Even just this hour presentation is jam packed with a lot of stuff. You'll take a lot of notes. You'll be able to apply, even if you don't join anything else that he does. There's a lot of great stuff in this.
which one was the one you were talking about? Is at the other offsite area? Was it the one that's on 313? The panel?
Yeah, that one is basically just, we're going to be talking about the current market and what their expectations are that they see coming up. All three of these guys are researchers, guys. It's not just their opinion. These guys, some of my favorite when it comes to data and stats and the meaning behind their opinions is because well, kind of like James says, Tony has his experiences, but he backs it up by science and data. These guys are all really, really good at giving you tools and resources on why they think the way they think instead of just conjecture, if that makes sense.
So they're not floofy?
They're not floofy. So I'll do a logo like the Ghostbuster things, floofy with a line through it. No floofy. How are you, Stacy? Look forward to seeing you next week.
I'm all right. Yeah, I'm excited. I just feel like I've got a ton to get done ahead of time. So
So jealous. I so wanted to go this year, but just not working out. But can I say something too about Bill Pipes? You guys have heard that he's got another G3 Nation training coming up in Orlando in May. Have you heard that?
I don't know about that. Yeah, take a couple of minutes and then we'll move on to our last thoughts.
Okay.
Yep. Go ahead.
Oh, it's the event is called salespowerevent.com. It's May 6th through 6th, 7th, and 8th, and it's in Orlando at the JW Marriott Bonnet or Bennett Bonnet, something like that. All of that is on the site, and it's at the training is being held at the hotel that he's got it booked for, and it's the reduced price right now is $299 for the 3 days, so that's pretty good pricing as he's had. I don't know how long that price is good for, but I'm planning to go down, and I'm kind of making it like a vacation, big type of trip with me, because I have family that's in the Orlando, Florida area, and my son Ryan's only 7-hour drive to Orlando, and I can go into Atlanta and go visit. So I'm making a kind of a vacation / work trip again. And his new, I went to his Salt Lake City event in October, and I think it was the best one he had done, before he was with, John Sheplack and all that. But this one is his own, and he's doing a really, really great job on it. And so I pretty much follow him as well, thanks to you and you Jeff, and all. For 4 years ago, I think, is when you 3 or 4 years ago, you put me in touch with him. So
Awesome. Awesome. That's salespower.com, right?
Salespowerevent.com.
Okay.
Okay. It's real easy to find. So that's all I have. I just wanted to promote it
Thanks
a
for
little
that.
bit. Yep.
Thanks, Kathy. James, we're back to you.
Okay, cool. Let's see here. Oh, it's impressive. They even put Sean Aker on there, and I did not give Ashley that information, so that's good. So this is kind of something I've been thinking about. I've been hearing a lot about frequency and vibration and all that stuff. So this quote will kind of go along with it, but it's this is from the book, The Happiness Advantage. It says, just as our brains can be wired in ways that hold us back, we can retrain them to scan for the good things in life, to help us see more possibility, to feel more energy, and to succeed at higher levels. This quote came from the principle called the Tetris effect. And so as you're playing Tetris, you notice like you could fit like a 4x4 block in one certain position. And so you recognize that pattern, and that kind of recognition pattern can be applied to both negative thoughts and positive thoughts. And so, Jeff, you want to go to the next slide? Okay. So this is a little, I'm going to kind of talk about briefly the relationship between time and frequency. And so can anyone tell me which of those waves has the higher frequency? The red or the blue?
It depends on what the graph is dictating. I mean, the blue's above the red, but they're the same wave.
Yeah. And I did kind of, this is one of my pet peeves when people show graphs and they're not labeled, but that's exactly what I did. And it's kind of on purpose. And a lot of times this message is conveyed as far as having a higher frequency, as people will like lift their hand up. So like, oh, a higher frequency. But when you looked at, and this is the science nerd in me coming out, when you look at electromagnetic wavelengths, it's not a matter of it being higher or lower. So Jeff, you're right. So these waves are actually of the same frequency. And frequency is related to time through, like if you were to measure these, you would say the frequency of this is, considering from like the far left black line to the far right black line, if that's 1 second, the frequency of this would be 2 hertz. And so what that implies is that not necessarily, I was going to say not necessarily time travel, but if we're operating at a frequency of say like 2 hertz or events per second or something like that, that's kind of where we're maxed out. And so I started thinking about this more when somebody was saying, you know, I really don't have time to do this. I don't have time to do this. And this wasn't me saying this, but as far as a time thing. And then with some of the things that I've been focusing on as far as like operating in my strengths and just really trying to get on a higher vibration or frequency, I'm actually able to accomplish more. And so, Jeff, you want to go to the next slide? And this is why. So if you look at these, the same thing as the waves that start on the far left and then end on the far right, that's 1 second. And so the blue wavelength has not changed. So it's still operating at 2 hertz. But if you look at the bottom one, there's a lot more wavelengths, and you measure wavelengths from, we'll say, one peak to the next peak. So this has a total, so the red wave is operating at 4 hertz, even though it's in the same time period of 1 second. And so I want to say this is kind of a way you can actually save time and get more done, is if you actually increase your frequency. Just as there's more wavelengths in 1 second on the red wave compared to 2 in the blue, if you can start figuring out how to increase your frequency, which is kind of goes along with the first, with the quote I shared, as far as looking at the positive things that are I was going to say happening to you, but if you reframe that and talk about how they're happening for you, you can start to focus on the positive, and that's going to increase your frequency, and you're going to be able to get more done. And I kind of think of it, and there's another way to increase energy. We won't necessarily talk about that, but have you guys ever had a phone call and it's just kind of awkward, like you're kind of talking over each other and you don't quite have the groove, and you're just like, this is like, just not that exciting. I'm sure we've all experienced it. But then if you like hop on a phone call either with a friend or someone in person, and we've had many of these meetings after the Wednesday trainings, and you're just like, it seems like you're vibrating on the same frequency and everything's flowing and you can feel the energy increase. That's kind of what it's like when you can actually feel that you're operating in a higher frequency. So just kind of compare that, I would say, at some point later today or even now, one of those times where you've had a conversation where there wasn't a flow, you're talking over each other, compared to when you're having just a great conversation, or you're having a really great, or listening to a great presentation, and you can physically feel a change on the inside of you. And that's one way you can know that you're operating at a higher frequency, is the emotion associated with what you're currently going through. And so one last little thing, I thought this was a super clever sort of thing. Does anybody, so honestly, a lot of this stuff is just my own thoughts, so take it for what it's worth. But hopefully it's making some sort of sense. Oh, I have that marked. Okay. So there's another book that I've kind of been looking at, and it's asked the question, why is it important to identify contrast? And it has the key to getting what you want without getting stuck focusing on what you don't want is to briefly observe contrast. And this applies to like the emotions you feel and the frequency and everything. It says, notice that when you experience contrast around smells, sounds, or tastes, your tolerance is minimal. So think about these statements. How long would you smell something that doesn't smell good? How long would you listen to music that doesn't sound good? How long would you eat something that doesn't taste good? And I think of like feeding a little baby, like some baby food. They haven't necessarily tried it yet. It goes in, it just immediately projectile right back at you. I mean, absolutely no tolerance for that. Then it says, there are, however, a few areas of your life where you may observe contrast far too long. It says relationships, health, money, career, and other. It says generally the least amount of time you spend putting your attention, energy, and focus toward contrast, the better. And so as you spend more time focusing on the positive, or even when problems come up, thinking about, this is an opportunity to show my skill as an agent, or to solve this, or kind of look at it with an excitement perspective, or the other way to think about it is like, oh crap, I am like royally screwed. Even just me saying that, I could feel the difference between those two statements. So it's really kind of an awareness thing, and it's going to be different for each and every one of you as far as, what your strengths are and things like that. And this goes back to the original conversation we were having. I made a little, no, sorry, this is taking a minute, but it kind of goes back to like comparison mode. I was in a meeting yesterday, and somebody said, well, somebody brought something up as far as journaling, and this person's like, well, I journal, but not as consistent as this other person. And somebody made a statement, and this other person's like, I really like that statement. I wouldn't have said it as eloquently as this person. And I wanted to say, well, we don't need another one of these people. Like, we don't need another James. We don't need another Shane. We don't need another Jeff. We need you. And so it really comes down to not comparing. And that's where the authenticity is going to come through. And that's where, like, going back to like listing presentations and stuff, they don't need you to regurgitate a presentation made by somebody else that they had success with. Like, it's good to learn it, but present it as yourself. But at the end of the day, like, I don't do listing presentations. I don't do any presentations. I just listen, and then honestly, kind of going back to the buyer broker, I'll pull that thing out with the listing agreement and say, hey, these are the things that we do for you. This is what you can expect of me. And a lot of people don't even want to read. They're like, okay, cool, where can I sign this? And a lot, because we'll just say, hey, we'll let you look this over, and they just want to sign it right there. Because Shayna and I show up as ourselves, and we're not even concerned about the paperwork. That's just kind of a formality, as was discussed. But they want to sign it right there, because we are being ourselves. We're operating at a high frequency, looking to serve them to the highest and best of our abilities. And we know if something comes up, we're always going to look for the positive for it. And if we need to redirect the way they're viewing it and see that it can come out as a win-win scenario, we present them with options. But that's kind of the gist of it. I don't know if there'd be a specific challenge, but I would say, actually, yeah, there's a challenge. So going throughout this week, I would say, if you notice that you're kind of at a low energy point, or you're having some potentially like negative emotions, kind of think about what your thoughts previous to that were, and maybe reframe those. And as you reframe those, just kind of pay attention to how that changes your energy and how you're feeling about the scenario. So that's been a powerful thing for me. And I'm not perfect at it. It's just an early practice, but it's made some pretty big changes for me. So the end.
Good stuff, James. Thank you. That was well prepared too, and I love how you tied it in, even with what our beginning comments were talking about with Kaylee on authenticity. So yeah, this one's a important topic for me, because when you start talking about energy and frequency, there's another way to look at frequency too. Frequency is, how many events during this period of time, like you're talking about, but then there's also the energy of a frequency, a vibrational frequency and energy that you can connect with, or that either repels you or attracts you. And you can feel that around people, like James says, it is like you tend to rise to a different frequency when you're around certain people. So I'm pretty conscious about this, and I don't have time for a lot of complaining and negative comments and this and that, because I absorb all of that energy into myself, and it just doesn't serve me. So I tend to try and cut those off as fast as I can.
Mm-hmm. One thing that I forgot to relate on there is that energy is related to frequency, and the shorter, essentially the more waves you can get in an equal amount of time, that is higher energy. So the one that was operating at 4 hertz, that's at a higher energy than the one that was operating at 2. So, and with that higher energy. And the other, well, I'll just say it. The other thing I was talking about, if you get 2 people operating at 4 hertz or at the same frequency or whatever, your individual frequencies can actually collide. And that can, let's say they join and then they turn into one wave, that can actually increase the amplitude, which is the height of it. And that is operating at a higher frequency also. That was more along the lines of what I was talking about as far as conversations, either on the phone versus like in person, that's going really well. So there's different ways to actually increase the energy. And the interesting thing is it's a linear relationship with as far as how many waves you have, but the relationship when you increase the amplitude is actually squared. So if you're both operating at like an amplitude of 2, I guess that's not actually a good example, because that would just double. But if you're both operating at an amplitude of 3, if you take 3 squared, that's going to be equal to 9. So it's kind of a synergistic effect as far as that goes. And I think that's an important part as far as uniting people also. The sum is, or the whole is greater than the sum of the individual parts. But the end again.
I love that, James. I actually experienced that this weekend. I was speaking to Josh Metal earlier. He's going to be on that panel discussion. I was on the phone with him talking about some different investment opportunities and lending scenarios and stuff. And I left that conversation at a higher state than I went into it before that phone call because of the collaboration and the energy that we shared. So I hadn't thought about it the square example that you just gave, but that is exactly what happened in that conversation just yesterday. So that gives me a good visual on why that works. Anybody have any comments on that? It's good stuff, James. I loved it. I love that book too. The Happiness Advantage. If you guys haven't read it, it'd be a good read or listen.
All right, this is one of my favorite topics. I love it. And kind of to bring what you're saying into like your real estate, James, is when let's say someone really doesn't know you, you're a referral, and you walk in and you do what you're talking about. You're just excited to be who you are and to help them sell their home, and you just come in with that that vibration. It's amazing to watch the body language and how people change when they start feeling that vibrational energy. And that it's not just in real estate, it's anything, just paying attention even to like the words people say on social media. Like I read something yesterday in particular, and the words that he used and the things that he was saying were just so negative, right? And it was changing my vibrational energy. And so what I've learned from this past year is when people are being negative, just pose a question that maybe makes them think of what they're talking about in a different way. And I watch it change vibrational energy if it's not changing theirs. But it makes me feel good that I'm changing the vibration of all of the comments on a post. And I've been having a lot of fun with that. And so I think that you can change people's vibrational energy, even just in writing.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
I remember when that happened, Lynn. Yeah, I haven't read your post, but I remember when that happened. You said something to the effect of like, this Facebook page is getting more and more and more filled with negativity, that you almost felt a responsibility to make a positive comment about the situation that was garnishing all these negative comments. So I love that.
What I'm seeing is that people love to make each other feel better. So if you have someone complaining about something, let's Utah Real Estate Agent Facebook group. Someone complains about something, then everyone loves to put in their complaint too. But let's assume that really they don't have all the facts. They're coming to a conclusion based on their own thoughts. And so when you have someone else come in and say, but maybe there's a different side to this, that's what I'm seeing. It's kind of like someone says they're depressed, right? A lot of people like to add in things of, I'm sorry you're feeling that way, or different things that actually keep the mode going in that depressed state or that unhappy state or feeling bad for someone. Whereas you can actually use different words that change the tonality or maybe make it so that that person thinks differently. Those are the kind of things that are popping into my mind after some of the neuro wellness things that I've been learning. And it's a lot. It just makes things fun when you're not falling into that negativity. I feel like the last few years have been a lot of negativity, and so being able to be the source, and there's a lot of us, a source of brightness and a source of happiness. We just can create more of that if we start collaborating together to be that. And that all goes into the vibrational energy. You can have it low or you can have it high. And it really depends on what you're reading, who you're hanging out with, and who you're listening to, because some people might be motivational speakers, but they really aren't on a high vibrational energy. And you can feel that. You're like, why am I not feeling what he's or she's saying? Because sometimes they don't believe it themselves, the things that they're saying. You know, you got to feel it and hear it.
It's kind of interesting for me too, because my boys are kind of sick of me for saying the same thing over and over the last few weeks. It's a saying that's kind of got stuck in my head, but it kind of fits in with this. Lynn, when you're talking about, just energy and raising energy, sometimes like if you've had a really long day and you're showing like a house at 4:30, but you have something that's really exciting happening at 7 o'clock tonight, your energy is going to be higher when you get to where you want to go. So if you're thinking about at 4:30 when you're showing this house that I can't wait to get to 7 o'clock, your energy is automatically lower because you're not in the moment of right now. And I love the thought of raising somebody else's energy and frequency because yours is higher. So this quote I've been telling my boys for weeks now, it comes up all the time. You'd be shocked. So yesterday it was getting dark and my 12-year-old really wanted to go throw the football around. It's pitch black. It's like, I'm sorry, you can't. And he kind of did one of these, slumped down. He's all sad that he can't go play football in the dark, right? And this quote that I keep saying is, son, remember, happiness is not a future event. So if you're always thinking about, hey, when I get here, when I do this, when I close these homes, or when I get to this level, I'm going to be happy then. And it never happens because you're always going to be chasing your happiness. So your energy that you have right now should, like right on this, in this call, on this meeting, it should be, where am I finding my energy and my happiness in this moment, and not focusing on happiness being in the future. So I don't even know who said that, Jeff, and I don't even know where I've heard it, but it keeps coming up in my mind that happiness is not a future event. It's right now if you choose to have it.
I think that might even have been a conversation in the book that James was referring to. I've read a couple of books on the subject, and similar to what you just said, the saying I remember is, people are always saying, I'll be happy when I'm successful, or like a future event, I'll be happy when I have that house, I'll be happy when I have that car, or I meet that person. And the concept was, you need to decide to be happy first, which will enable you then to attain those other things quicker. Happiness comes first. It's not a byproduct from any sort of achievement. You just decide to be happy. And they went further to say, well, what if this happened, which was a negative experience? What if I lost a child? What if I lost a spouse? Or what if this happened? What if my business failed? If you've decided to be happy in spite of, that means good and bad, you can at core decide to be happy, and then shit just happens, right? There are events and circumstances that happen. It also ties in with the book called Solve for Happy. Solve for Happy was written by an engineer who tried to solve the equation for happiness. And I'm mentioning that because it strips it down to, happiness is our natural state. Why do you think kids are so happy? Why do you think, as a bit, the little children just exude this frequency and this energy, and then as they get older, things kind of change a little bit? It's because they've added layers of shit to their life and things that have hidden and suppressed the happiness. And if you can strip all that away, what's left is happiness. So it kind of ties that together a little bit. And that was a good share, Eric. Happiness is not a future event. I love it. The end.
Hey, Jeff, I got something to play off of that.
Yes.
Somebody asked AI to draw a happy bunny, and so it drew a happy bunny, and then they said, make it happier. And they did this like, I don't know, 10 times. And in the end, it was just like this beautiful light that looked kind of like a sunset or a higher being. Pretty cool.
Interesting. Well, guys, if anybody has any other comments, chime in. And Kathy, I noticed you put the information about that event for Build Pipes in the chat. Thank you for that. Let's end with this, Eric. If you've got any comments on that, based on the time frame, we don't need to spend too much time on it, so you guys can get about your day. But
I do
anything
have
on
a
it, Eric?
I do have a quick question.
Yes, sorry.
Has anybody ever heard of creative services investments?
Don't believe so for me. No.
Oh, they sent me an offer on one of my listings. I haven't gone through it yet, but just kind of throws up a bunch of red flags to me. But okay, thank you.
Well, Jeff, I'll be brief, since we're getting kind of late on the time, but I was on a class, agent attraction class earlier this week, and kind of the whole topic was what's working now. And there's a kind of the standard thing, make a list, make it better, but the one thing that I really got from this class was the most important thing for agent attraction is conversations. How many conversations are you having a week? So I was thinking it would be kind of fun for all of us that want to create a revenue share, passive income with EXP, is to actually pull out your phone and open up a note, like your notes. And every time you have a conversation with an agent that's not with EXP, just put a little checkbox, or just, count at one and their name. And we're not even talking about EXP. We're just having conversations. Because the point that was made was, if you want more listings or you want more buyers, you need to have more conversations. That's all it is. You need to talk to more people. And it's the same with agent attraction. And it's okay to be intentional about it. If maybe it's a Saturday, you don't have an open house. Why not just go visit 3 or 4 open houses around where you live and talk to some agents, learn about some homes? It's certainly not going to hurt your real estate business to know more about the houses that are in your market. And you're just having a conversation and maybe creating a friend that's also a realtor in another brokerage, and you never know where that could lead. And those conversations can lead to something about, if somebody says, hey, we're struggling, it's hard to get buyers qualified. You can mention, I just saw this, we just had an amazing class on house hacking in our office last week. I'd be happy to send you a recording of the video. That's it. I mean, you're not trying to recruit anyone. You're just having conversations and helping and giving someone a value. And all the classes that we have lined up in the next month, I mean, how awesome are they? I mean, this is just like, our classes are fantastic for any agent to take a look at. So yeah, my thought this week is just kind of make a note. Just say, how many conversations am I having with agents that aren't with EXP about listings, or in any reason at all, and be intentional about writing them down, just so you can kind of track how many people that you talk to on a regular basis. And then we can figure out, how do we introduce those people to our tribe? And on one of my favorite ways, and we don't do it as much as we used to, is a 3-way conversation. I would love for you to meet Jeff. I'd love for you to meet Lynn, Eric, or whoever. Let me see if I can get him on the call real quick, or get him on the phone. I'd love for you to meet him. Just something simple, like if you're talking about a certain real estate topic, or even EXP. So just have more conversations, and track them. Everything that has success is tracked. So those were my thoughts this week, Jeff. It's just focus on having more conversations, whether it's about EXP or not.
I love it. Down to the basics.
Yep.
Relationships. All right, guys. Shall we break?
Well, have fun in Cabo.
Thank you. Yeah, so love you guys. Have a great week. Hopefully we see you Wednesday on Zoom or in person for that training. And have a great week.
Thank you.
Hey guys.
Thanks. See you guys.
Bye, guys.
Hey, see ya.
Bye.
Well, hello, soul survivors.